Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you can hear me.
مكنت جميع المؤسسات الإسلامية العاملة في هذا المجال لتطوير اقتراحات الاقتصاد الإسلامي ومنتجاتها في جميع أنحاء العالم بفضل الله ثم بفضل هؤلاء علمائنا الكرام. الورقة الأولى يقدمها أستاذنا الأستاذ مابد الجارحي، وهو غني عن التعريف، ولكن فقط عادة استمرارا للعادة فقد تخرج من جامعة القاهرة من كلية الاقتصاد والإدارة، ثم أكمل الماجستير في جامعة إلينويس، ثم الدكتوراه في جامعة جنوب كاليفورنيا في الولايات المتحدة. وقد درس وحاضر وعمل إداريا في كثير من دول الجامعات دول العالم الإسلامي والجامعات الغربية وغيرها. وهو أنشأ أيضا مركز دراسات الاقتصاد إسلامي في جامعة أنقرة للعلوم الاجتماعية، وأيضا يدرس في معهد جامعة مرمرة للاقتصاد الإسلامي والتمويل. وورقة الأستاذ ومداخلته عنوانه: كيف يمكن لاقتصاد دولة الإسلامية أن يستفيد من نموذج الاقتصاد الكلي الإسلامي حالة تركيا نموذجا. فليتفضل أستاذنا مشكورا.
أستاذنا الدكتور أرطغرل، هل تريد أن أتكلم بالعربية أم بالإنجليزية؟
أستاذي الخيار لكم.
لا يعني إذا كان في ترجمة فما هو الأسهل للمترجمين؟
هو أستاذ مراد عميد الكلية أظن إذا قرر هو سيكون أحسن، لأن هناك ترجمة لا أدري هل سيترجم من العربية أو من الإنجليزية.
أنا كما تريدون. أستطيع أن أقدم يعني المحاضرة بالإنجليزية أو بالعربية إذا شئتم.
Üstad Murat, إذا كان يسمعنا. Murat hocam, duyuyorsanız hocamız Arapça mı İngilizce mi sunuyun diye bir soru yöneltti. Daha sonra hani sunum sonrasında kısa tercüme Arapça mı olacak İngilizce mi, ona göre hocamıza cevap verebilirsek.
Sunucular çok entelektüel boyutu. Hangisi olsun fark etmez.
Cevabı?
Cevabı.
Evet. Şey mi hocam, nasıl devam edelim? Murat hocam, أستاذي تفضلوا كما تريدون، سواء ممكن العربية أو الإنجليزية كما يحلو لكم. تفضلوا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الخلق وقائد الغر المحجرين وشفيعنا ورسولنا وقدوتنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم ارزقنا علما نافعا ينفع الإسلام والمسلمين. I will speak in English because there may be a suspicion that in the audience some people might understand English. Now I would like to thank the university for its invitation, and also I would like to thank Professor Ertuğrul BOYNUKALIN for his very kind and very graceful and very generous introduction. I would like to speak, inshallah, on how an Islamic country benefit from the Islamic Macroeconomic Model. As you know, the Islamic economics has now so many fields. Of course, there is a field of Islamic finance which has dominated for so many years, but there is also the field of fiqh, economics or fiqh Islamic economics, which is a textual discipline and offers us the rules of behavior under Sharia as derived from Quran and Sunnah. And there are other fields like history of Islamic economic thought, for those people who are interested in Ibn Khaldun and Shaybani, who was the father of economics and lived in the 13th century and so on. I am a proponent of what we call analytical Islamic economics. And in analytical Islamic economics, we reject the neoclassical methodology, and we have the counter methodology, which, and based on this, we have developed our microeconomic analysis, and this is part of our macroeconomic analysis. Now, there are many there are many great Islamic economists who have worked in the field of macroeconomics. On the top of them was what has been Muhammad Omar Chapra, who has written some very useful books on the monetary system. And I have developed an article on 1981 in Arabic, and it appeared later on in English, about the institutional structure of an Islamic economic system. And I will use this structure in order to show how a country like in our time can, and particularly Turkey, can benefit from applying the macroeconomic model. First of all, the first step of this would be, which would be in difference with neoclassical economics, is that we have to switch from debt-based money to equity-based money. So debt-based money is money that is issued to be loaned to the government and to banks and ultimately to people. And the revenue of this process goes not to the public, but to banks, which we call seigniorage. So the equity-based money would be money to be issued, to be invested. So money would be issued by the central bank as investment accounts in all banks in the national economy, with instructions from the central bank that they would use one of the 20, any of the 20 Islamic finance contracts that are mentioned in the first volume of my book to finance either consumption or investment. This particular process would mean that the central bank would have central deposits which are taken from banks on the basis of mudaraba. The other thing here, that one of the instructions of the central bank would be that there would be no fishing on Saturday. What do you mean by that? I'm talking about the Jews here, that the Jews, in order to make rules, in order to go around the prohibition of working on Saturday, they have had a certain rules, which actually showed them apparently that they did not fish on Saturday. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not accept that. And he told them, كونوا قردة خاسئين, be losing or disgraced apes. So I'm sorry to say that, but the Sharia boards in our Islamic banks all over the countries, wherever there is an Islamic bank, they use these sources, and they invented some Islamic financial products that are dressed in an Islamic garb, but they are conventional. So we will tell our banks, stop doing that. And this would be a big step forward to reform Islamic finance. Now we have a reformed Islamic finance, and we have also the equity-based money, which is invested in Islamic banks as investment accounts, or as all banks, it doesn't matter, provided that banks who receive those accounts would apply Sharia. Okay, how can they apply Sharia? We have a product handbook, Islamic products handbook, and this is already prepared in Arabic and English. It needs to be summarized in Turkish and given to our Turkish central bank here to issue as a regulatory set of rules, or a set of regulatory rules for banks to follow.
أستاذ الكريم معكم 10 دقائق.
Oh, okay. So I will try to summarize very quickly. So here we have returns, investment returns on government central deposits. This returns, and this is appears in my scenario for the Turkish economy. These returns at a 4% rate of return would be many times, would be 3 or 4 times government tax and non-tax revenue. So here the government has a choice of either removing taxation, and of course that would mean that the investment income of the government or the seigniorage would still be more, that's more than that. So the rest can be used to improve, upgrade, and expand the infrastructure of the economy. And as we know, economists usually claim that the economic growth will depend on how good the infrastructure. So we have the financing available and we have the infrastructure. So the Turkish economy would be ready for a speedy growth path. So we can actually exceed or equal or exceed the growth of China. Muslim countries applying this would have a great economic advantage. The problems of currencies faced by some Muslim countries, that is summarized by the continuous deterioration in the exchange rate, would stop. Actually, currencies would appreciate. How is that? The monetary policy itself would be based on the rate of growth, the real rate of growth as an anchor. How do we get the rate of growth? The central bank issues central deposit certificates, which are equity-based monetary financial instruments, which are marketed. Their proceeds would be added to the investment accounts of the central bank, and the rate of return on these CDCs or central deposit certificates would have a very strong relationship with the real rate of growth. In other words, the central bank can estimate the real rate of growth using the CDC rate of return in comparison with the rate of interest. The rate of interest is an administered price. It doesn't come out of any market. It does not represent anything, although some neoclassical economists claim that the rate of interest summarizes the rates of time preferences of all people for all commodities. But this assumes an aggregation which would be contrary to the conditions set by three economists, that's Sonnenschein, Mantel, and De Broglie. And these conditions would actually fall down to being an economy with one individual and one commodity. And of course, this is a trivial case. So we know that the rate of interest, both administered price and unrelated to fundamentals. In an Islamic economic system, if you use the rate of interest as an anchor, then it will have the same problems of the conventional economic system. Our policies will not be realistic. They will have no predictable results. And but in an Islamic economic system, in our model, we have a rate of return, which we can use to estimate the real rate of growth, and we just equate the rate of growth of money supply or the rate of monetary expansion with the real rate of growth. Now, this leaves no room for inflation or deflation. In other words, you would have very close to absolute price stability. No country in the world can reach that level of price stability, which means that our currency would be in a much better position, and it will improve an exchange rate against all currencies where countries have any rates of inflation, however slight they are. So monetary policy will be based or will be anchored to the rate of return on CDCs, which would be used to estimate the real rate of growth. Now, the whole philosophy and the moral basis of this economy is what? In other words, on what basis would people base their economic decisions when they invest? In a conventional economic system, you compare the rate of return with the rate of interest, and the rate of interest is set by a group in the central bank. We call them the Monetary Policy Committee. But in our economy, we estimate the rate of growth and equate the rate of monetary expansion to the real rate of growth. So by doing so, we are really very close to stability. How do we carry fiscal policy in this case? How can the government spend more than its income? Of course, we are saying that it could cancel taxation. The government would go to the banks and finance its projects. Of course, if these projects which are left seeking finance after we use all the seigniorage, and the seigniorage is so huge, we probably don't need that. But suppose we did, we have to assume that. Then, in this case, the government can obtain finance from banks. And this would rationalize government spending by forcing the government to present feasibility studies for its projects, make sure that its projects are feasible and they contribute to the national economy. The other thing here is that the public sector would shrink. Why would it shrink? You see, the Islamic economic system is not just money. It is also, we have two very important sectors. One is awqaf, and if we open the door to awqaf, and if we reformed the laws governing awqaf, and if we, in order to make sure that there would be no corruption in awqaf, and also if we were to establish a national auditing institution that would be specialized in auditing awqaf projects, then awqaf can take care of much of our public services, particularly education and health. And as many of us would remember, that we had times in the Islamic, under the Islamic rule or Islamic government, that all of our education and all of our health services were provided by awqaf. So the government will withdraw from this area. There would be no need for that. Now, how about social justice? The government will collect zakah, or will allow non-government institutions to collect zakah, and zakah would be used to finance micro projects whose titles would be given to the poor. The poor would have productive assets to work with. Their productivity would shoot up, would be much higher, and we will have transformed every poor person to be both productive and rich.
جزاكم الله خيرا. أعتذر.
Yeah, that's it. So, this is the structure of the Islamic economic system, the macro structure, and this is offered to any country, and we are just waiting for anybody that wants to apply. Thank you very much, Professor Ertuğrul.
نعم نشكركم شكرا جزيلا أستاذ الكريم على هذه المداخلة القيمة. الآن الترجمة سيكون الآن أو أستاذ مراد كيف سنعمل؟ Murat Hocam tercüme şu anda olacak mı hemen? Nasıl?
Hocam en son yapacağımız.
Tamam. Şimdi hocalarımızın tebliğlerini sunmasından sonra arkadaşlarımız toplu olarak kısa tercümeleri yapacaklar. Üstadنا الفاضل أستاذ علي أهلا وسهلا بكم. الصوت مغلق.
أي نعم.
أي نعم شرفتمونا. أستاذي فقط نستسمحكم الأستاذ محمد كبير هو يشترك من الولايات المتحدة والوقت متأخر جدا عنده وهو يرجو إذا سمحتم أن يسبقكم بالمداخلة.
لا خليه يتفضل ما في مشكلة.
جزاكم الله خيرا. نعتذر لكن نقدر ظروفه.
لا نقدر ظروفكم جميعا. بارك الله فيكم.
Allah يبارك فيكم. İkinci tebliğimiz yine Muhammed Kebir Hasan hocamız tarafından takdim edilecek. Muhammed Kebir Hasan hocamız Bangladeş doğumlu. Amerika Birleşik Devletleri'nde lisans eğitiminden sonra, ekonomi ve matematik üzerine lisans eğitiminden sonra Nebraska Üniversitesi'nde yüksek lisansını ve doktorasını tamamlıyor. Kendisi şu anda New Orleans Üniversitesi'nde ekonomi ve finans bölümünde öğretim üyesi olarak bulunuyor. Bangladeş, Katar, Malezya, Almanya, Suudi Arabistan ve Endonezya'daki birçok üniversitede öğretim üyesi olarak bulundu. İslamik iktisad alanında uluslararası birçok ödül sahibi, bu alanın en önde gelen isimlerinden. Kendisine hoş geldin diyoruz. الأستاذ محمد كبير حسان من مواليد بنغلاديش، أنهى دراسة الليسانس في الاقتصاد والرياضيات في أمريكا، ثم حصل على الماجستير والدكتوراه من جامعة نبراسكا، وهو الآن يعمل أستاذا في جامعة نيو أورليانز قسم الاقتصاد والتمويل، وهو يعني حاضر كأستاذ زائر في كثير من جامعات العالم الإسلامي والجامعات العالمية مثل جامعات قطر وماليزيا وإندونيسيا والمملكة العربية السعودية وبنغلاديش، وله عدد من الجوائز حصل عليها في دراساته العمومية وخاصة في دراساته عن الاقتصاد الإسلامي. وسيلقي بحثه عن دور النظام المالي في كوفيد 19 والدور التمويل الإسلامي في داخل هذا النظام. Hocamızın tebliği Covid-19'un mali sistem içinde ve İslami finans sistemi açısından Covid-19'un tahlili olacak. تفضلوا أستاذي أستاذ محمد كبير.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Professor Ertuğrul, for your very nice introduction. So I'm going to share my screen. Do you see my screen? Can you hear me?
نعم. نعم. تفضل أستاذ.
So I'm going to thank you. It was very wonderful presentation by Professor Mabid al-JARHI, looking at the Islamic macro perspective and how the equity-based system can replace the debt-based system and can help improve the Muslim countries. So here's also an agenda that for us to follow. So he is one of the earlier fathers or the first generation Islamic economics gurus in the field. We are from home. We have learned a lot, so my respect to him. So my presentation kind of little different. I'm just looking into the finance part of it. So this is what happened during the COVID-19, and it's still going on. Many countries is still under lockdown. So what happened, this little virus has threw a wrench into the world economy and turned the lives of billions of people upside down. So what was the impact of COVID-19 on Islamic finance? Now, first, let's look at the impact of COVID-19 on the global economy. Estimates indicate that the virus reduced global economic growth in 2020 to an annualized rate of negative 3.4% to negative 7.6%, with a recovery of 4.2% to 5.6% projected for 2021. Global trade is also estimated to have fallen by 5.3% in 2020, but it will grow again to 8% in 2021. According to consensus of forecasts, the economic downturn in 2020 was not as negative as initially estimated, due in part to the fiscal and monetary policies governments have adopted in 2020. Generally speaking, economic growth forecasts capture the decline and subsequent rebound in economic growth over the second and third quarters of 2020, but have been challenged since by the prolonged nature of the health crisis and its continuing impact on the global economy. So if we look at how this crisis started, just a little bit of history. 1997 Asian financial crisis. It was started as a monetary crisis in Thailand, then hit the neighboring country Malaysia through monetary and fiscal channels. But if you look at 2008 and 9 global financial crisis, it started a housing market and financial crisis in the US, then hit Malaysia through the trade channel. But 2019 and 20 COVID-19 crisis, it was foremost a public health crisis that created both supply and demand shocks, and public health measures to flatten inflation curve also steepen recession talks. So there has been a lot of policy actions taken by different governments, prioritization public health response, the role of Keynesian fiscal stimulus package, and also the role of social insurance transfer that happened during this time period. Now, if you look at Islamic finance before pandemic, according to IFSB's Islamic Financial Service Stability Report 2019, prior to the pandemic, we have seen that the Islamic banking, which is the 71% of the market share, grew about year to year about almost 1%. The Islamic capital market grew by 27%, and it's about 27% of the market. And Takaful is a minuscule, only 1.3% of the total market, and grew by 4.3%. And Islamic banking is still considered as systemically important in 12 IFSB jurisdictions, and most of these banks are concentrated in GCC and the South Asian region. And 80% of the sukuk outstanding also are concentrated in jurisdictions where Islamic banks is of systemic importance. Now, what happened to the impact of pandemic? Muslim majority countries have experienced huge burden of COVID-19. The countries such as the Republic of Iran, Turkey, Pakistan are among the first countries outside of China to see a large-scale outbreak. However, very limited research on COVID-19 outbreak among Muslim majority countries that focus on community engagement, the role of governments, as well as government mechanism. Many countries suffered low agriculture productivity, water scarcity, and lack of infrastructure facilities and production technologies. In the meantime, they are very fragile and vulnerable due to different kinds of problems like natural disasters such as droughts and locust invasion or political conflicts. Also, fiscal, monetary, and macro financial and exchange rate and balance of payment related policy changes adopted in the countries in the world showed improvements in productivity, which could be assessed based on the individual country circumstances. And the IMF has given a number of prescriptions. And there is also a question: will faster digitalization leave productivity? Will reallocation help productivity? With human capital be permanently impacted? Now, during the pandemic, the Islamic finance, the downside risk of the global economy in 2020, according to IFS report, magnitude and duration of the COVID-19 pandemic was unpredictable. Health crisis led to economic crisis. OPEC and coalition deal on oil output cut, and there was oil price volatility, and there's a foreign exchange volatility, and there is also long-term funding disruption, weakened real sector productivity, and also there is trade war, geopolitical impasse, and social unrest. So what happened? If you look at segment analysis I've talked about before, Islamic banking, 12.7% growth rate. After this crisis, Islamic capital market 24%, and Takaful is 2.2%. So according to IFS Islamic Financial Service Industry Stability Report 2020 released in the midst of the pandemic, following was witnessed in the terms of development Islamic finance. Again, I have gone through this thing. The GCC countries and Middle East are the biggest players in Islamic finance industry. So what was Islamic finance industry strategy in maintaining sustainability, resilience, stability? A value-based intermediation approach that promotes the notion of circular economy in achieving SDGs or human development and progress ought to be implemented by the Islamic finance industry. Already some jurisdictions like Malaysian Islamic finance industry are champions in this regard. A sustainability-based approach in the industry has been initiated at the regulatory authority level. The strategy outlines three components such as tracking the first and immediate impacts in the short term, focusing on social impact in response and recovery in the medium term, and helping countries recover most sustainably for the long term. And several countries have begun exploring the potential of sukuk vehicle as Islamic Development Bank called on the Islamic finance industry to promote sustainable and social sukuk as alternative asset classes that have the potential to counter the multifold impact of the COVID-19 coronavirus. And Islam embraces and encourages all types of innovation if it does not violate the principles of Sharia. Financial technology is one such innovation that has disrupted the whole finance world and found acceptance in the Islamic finance world. Now, how do we shape the future of the Islamic finance industry post-pandemic era? To shape the future of the Islamic finance industry post-pandemic era, it is imperative to understand the specific challenges faced by the different segments in Islamic finance industry during the pandemic and to find adequate and sustainable solutions for them. So we need to go back a little bit, the poverty alleviation scheme in Islam, and it has to be attacked. It's a multifaceted attack on poverty. There has to be a positive measure that taken by the government of Islamic country. The government should adopt policies that will have income growth, there will be functional distribution income so that the asset or wealth doesn't concentrate into few hands. There has to be equal opportunity of all citizens. So after you do the positive measure, there has to be preventive measures, make sure control of ownership distributed among the different segments of the citizenry, and there has to be prevention of malpractice or control of corruption that Professor Mabid Al-JARHI mentioned very eloquently. And even after you do this positive measure and preventive measure, there has to be some sort of corrective measures. We call the Islamic social finance. There is a compulsory transfer zakat, recommended transfer charity, and also there has to be state responsibility. Now, we can learn something from the Islamic history, crisis management policies of Umar bin Khattab. You know, during the Umar bin Khattab, there was a...
أستاذي معكم 10 دقائق أستاذ الكريم. 10 minutes.
Okay, so we can learn something from his time period instead of, and those who are Islamic history, you know, he has taken steps in order to attack the crisis that happened during his time. So what will be the role of Islamic social finance? You have the COVID-19 pandemic, Islamic economics finance. We have to follow the holistic solution to the crisis. Poverty elevation Islamic perspective, you have to integrate Islamic commercial and social finance. And of course, you can learn from the Islamic history. Now, the COVID-19 impact, if you look at a demand and supply analysis, so it started as a supply shock, and then supply shock permeated into the demand shock, and demand shock permeated into the loss of output. Now, if we bring the Islamic finance intervention, it's in demand and supply curve, we can restore the original equilibrium. And this is something recently, a paper done by Dr. Askaria from Indonesia. So the final condition of Islamic economy, Islamic social intervention will restore the equilibrium and will help grow the economy. Now, if you look at the Islamic banking per se, to deal with the crisis, central banks have announced several measures for liquidity support to the banking sector. This include lowering reserve requirements, lowering of the regulatory capital buffer, bond or sukuk buying programs, and evaluate central bank credit lines. Post-COVID solution, the policymakers need to introduce Islamic monetary market policies and instruments compatible to Islamic finance. The lockdown measures adversely affected the income of many customers of the Islamic banks. As such, though customers were given debt moratoriums due to loss of their source of income, however, some customers were unable to get back the income due to inability to do work. So the policymakers need to converge Islamic social finance with commercial finance to assist those unable to pay back their debts. The physical platforms normally used to provide banking services were closed, as providing service in a socially distant manner became the new normal. So the policymakers need to provide incentives to fintech companies, technology firms to collaborate with financial institutions to find effective and sustainable solutions. Further digital banking license frameworks need to be introduced. Now, the takaful contributors are unable to pay the contribution due to the loss of income. So the policymakers need to introduce mechanism to provide moratoriums to takaful contribution, as well as a rescue mechanism to contributors unable to survive via Islamic social finance mechanism, could use the surplus in the participant risk fund with the consent of the contributors be used to help pay out the contributions of those who are unable to pay them. Then Islamic capital market, you need to increase in government expenditure leading to fiscal deficit, warranting new funding projects. The private sector in many countries could not survive without the assistance from the governments in the midst of pandemic. MSME sector was particularly hit hard. Due to this, the debts of the governments increased the stimulus package or introduced to provide relief to those affected with the objective of reviving economies. So what is the post-COVID solution? The policymakers need to provide to introduce alternative funding options, buying Islamic financing more, such as via equity participation, likewise digital and technology frameworks to lease the companies and to issue sukuk and deal with crowdfunding need to be introduced. And this includes enacting proper electronic know your customer frameworks required for this purpose. Now, the opportunity challenges of Islamic finance post-economic recovery has created huge disruption in the finance world, and it posed another challenge to Islamic finance after the global financial crisis to provide an alternative and sustainable finance. The worst hit during the ongoing pandemic are those who has a huge market share in industries such as microfinance, small and medium enterprises, retail lending. In order to fight COVID-19 outbreak, Iran requested $5 billion from the International Monetary Fund, while Pakistan received an additional $1.4 billion from the IMF to cope with this increasing number of COVID-19 cases. Nigeria also took similar relief measures as IMF to $3.4 billion emergency financial assistance to help them. Now, the adoption of digital finance and financial technology has become very crucial post-pandemic. Now, with the Islamic finance instruments, sukuk, waqf, zakat, potential application for the Islamic recovery. So we really need to bring with the Islamic social finance. There are many countries in the world who successfully had used Islamic social finance institution instruments to rebuild the economy. For instance, Malaysia, the first digital sukuk pre-13 was issued by the government targeting retail market to recover their pandemic. To maintain the supply of the funds received with the demand, we need to ensure that the contributions are being motivated towards doing good in the society by providing the financial and non-financial incentives. In the Islamic social finance, certain instruments have been classified as tools to help the needy, particularly who are badly affected by the pandemic COVID-19. Zakat, sadaqah, and infaq can play significant roles, especially providing financial aids to them. Zakat has the potential to ease the financial situation for its huge collection recorded. And Islamic banks are more exposed to small and medium enterprises, microfinance, and retail lending, particularly in Asia. And there is a crucial need to minimize the economic consequences of the pandemic and safeguard the vulnerable population of the society. Another instrument is waqf. And waqf in India, for example, owns a substantial amount of waqf properties in the world. So is in Turkey, and that can be used for dealing with this pandemic. So what are the way forward? I'm coming towards the end of my presentation. So you have to convert Islamic social finance with Islamic commercial finance. You have to escalate the adoption of technology in offering Islamic finance. You have to link Islamic finance in achieving United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You can create a value-based intermediation approach in offering Islamic finance products and services now, that has been adopted in Malaysia. We can promote circular economy initiative by Islamic finance. We can complement Sharia governance with human governance, and can also introduce an adequate, equitable mechanism to deal with genuine defaulters and introduce Sharia governance standards for the Islamic social finance. So there are a number of prescriptions that I mentioned. Number one, innovative Islamic finance products serving different segments of population is required to be introduced. In the pandemic, it is realized that financial assistance to all segments of population in an equitable manner is required, and debt-based products are not compatible for this. As such, equitable-based Sharia-compliant frameworks could be introduced with the incentives to take Islamic finance industry to the next level. Second, legal, regulatory, tax, and governance framework used in finance industry need to cater dual financial system. During the pandemic, again, it is realized that Islamic finance can be an alternative financial system for conventional finance. However, the full potential of Islamic finance can only be tapped fully by creating a favorable legal, regulatory, tax, and governance framework required for Islamic finance system. And that is more true and Turkey, where you have a dual banking system. Now, if you look at number 3, technical cooperation and information exchange programs need to be activated between countries to strengthen Islamic finance industry. All countries who are successful in implementation of Islamic finance need to share their success stories with those countries aspiring to do it. In this regard, the reverse linkage program of ASBÜ needs to be acknowledged, and such initiatives need to be effectively implemented in a global level, even among the non-IIC or ISD countries as well. Number 4, financial inclusion by Islamic finance need to be promoted. Financial inclusion need to be promoted by Islamic finance mechanism as strategic policies. For that, at the global need to be introduced, and in this regard, regional standard setting bodies like AUFIN, affiliation with IFSB, Islamic Development Bank, and OIC could take the initiative to drive the strategy among the policymakers at the global context. A unified effort in this regard is required, and Turkey can take a leadership role along with other Muslim countries. Number 5, law harmonization efforts need to be activated. Islamic finance cannot be implemented without having proper legal environment to implement this. The legislation applicable to Islamic finance not only includes Islamic finance related laws, but also includes regulatory laws like tax laws, substantive laws like contract law, sale of goods law, and hire and purchase law, and adjective laws such as evidence law and court procedure that ought to be aligned with Islamic principles. If not, the full implemented Islamic finance will be inhibited. Therefore, law harmonization initiative like in Malaysia need to be activated in other countries like in Turkey to ensure that there is a level playing field for Islamic finance with conventional finance. Number 6, global standardization Islamic finance documentation should be escalated. Islamic finance practices are at global level, need to be standardized to increase cross-border transactions and increase certainty in international commercial transactions. IIFM has played an important role in this regard, and this process needs to be escalated. This way, the general perception that Islamic finance transactions and documentation are complemented will be changed. And number 7, policies to enhance liquidity in Islamic capital market need to be created. Illiquid capital markets leads to slow economic growth, and as such, ways to increase liquidity in Islamic capital market in countries need to be formulated through adoption of right rules. And finally, number 8, fintech and digitalization of Islamic finance is required. There is no doubt that fintech and digitalization drive is required to take Islamic finance to the next level. As such, proper policies and rules, including sandbox initiatives, need to be implemented in countries for the growth of Islamic finance in this regard. Last slide. The reality is COVID-19 is multi-dimensional crisis. As such, research needs to be carried out to understand its impacts and the new opportunities it has created. Electronic commerce platforms have become popular due to crisis, and the trend is towards creation of a digital virtual economy. However, to pave the way for digital or virtual economy, investments is required to build infrastructure for that, like having proper internet connection and gadgets required. The undeniable truth is there are two sides for every coin, and even for this crisis, there is need to find opportunities. Indeed, there is no doubt that every crisis provides opportunity to grow, and the power to identify them lies in positive thinking fused with innovation. And thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation, listening to me and giving me this opportunity to be part of this conference. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
شكرا جزيلا أستاذ الكريم. نشكر الأستاذ محمد كبير على هذه المداخلة القيمة. والآن سننتقل إلى أستاذنا الأستاذ علي محي الدين كراداغي. فقط buyurun.
Hocam tercüme yapabilir arkadaşlar, müsaade ederseniz.
Hani hepsini sonra yapacağız dedikleri için şu anda mı yapsınlar?
Hocam arada ikisi yapılsa güzel olur sanki, müsaade ederseniz. Hazır arkadaşlar.
Estağfurullah, ben hani Karadağ Hoca müsaitse
Eyvallah.
tekrar buyursunlar o zaman arkadaşlar buyursunlar.
Öncelikle ilk... Duyuyor musun sesim? İlk konuşmacımız Profesör Mabid AL-JARHI konuşmasında İslami bir ülkede İslam mikro modelinin nasıl faydalar sağlayabileceğinden bahsetti konuşması boyunca. İslami finans bir disiplin olarak aslında şeriat bağlamında yaklaşımlar geliştirdiğini söyledi. İbn Haldun ve diğer bazı İslami ekonomi konusunda önemli adımlar atmış, bazı gelişmeler sağlanmasında önemli katkıları olmuş kişilerden bahsetti. Analitik İslami ekonomi kavramını ele aldı. Yeni klasik metodolojinin reddedilmesinden bahsetti. Buna karşılık bizim de ekonomik modelimizi geliştirebileceğimizden bahsetti. Bu bağlamda makroekonomide yapılmış bazı çalışmalardan bahsetti, kıymetli çalışmalar yapıldığını bahsetti. Bu alanda Muhammed Ömer Hoca'dan bahsetti, yaptığı bazı çalışmalardan. 1981'de önemli bir makale yayınlamış kendisi. Bu makalesinden bahsetti. Yani bu finansal mevzuda yapısal olarak yaptığı açıklamalardan bahsetti. Genel olarak eşitlik temelli bir modelle karşılamakta olduğunu anlattı. Uygulanması nasıl adımlar atılabileceğinden bahsetti genel olarak kendisi konuşmasının ilerleyen kısımlarında. Türk ekonomisinin hükümetin atacağı adımların önemli olduğunu, Türk ekonomisinde böyle bir uygulamanın gerçekleştirilebilmesi söz konusu olacaksa eğer, Türkiye gelişim açısından iyi imkanlara sahip olduğundan bahsetti. Bu makroekonomi modelinin takip edilmesiyle hızlı bir gelişim de gösterebileceğinden ve son olarak konvansiyonel ekonominin kayıpların önüne geçmesinin aslında çok da etkili olamadığını, ancak riskleri engelleme konusunda İslam ekonomisinin çok güçlü olabileceğini ele aldı. Bu bağlamda İslam ekonomisi modelinin para birimlerine de aslında katkı sağlayabileceğini, yani riskler karşısında ani düşüşler veya yükselişleri engelleyebileceğinden bahsetti. Sonuçta ahlaki temelleri önemli olduğunu ve bu ahlaki temellerin stabilite açısından yani İslami ekonomi açısından çok önemli, kritik olduğundan bahsetti. Dolayısıyla aslında temeli aldığı bu ahlaki konular özellikle eğitim ve sağlık alanlarında katkılarının çok fazla olacağından, sosyal adalet açısından da zekatın özellikle mikro projeler üretilmesi açısından da katkı sağlayacağından söz etti. İkinci konuşmacımız Profesör Kabir Hasan, İslami finansın, yani bankacılığın aslında rolünden bahsetti genel olarak. Etkilerinden bahsetti öncelikle. Bazı istatistikler verdi konuşması boyunca. Global ekonomi üzerindeki etkilerinden bahsetti öncelikle. Daha sonra günümüze gelene kadar geçirilmiş bazı ekonomik krizleri ele aldı. Öncelikle 1997'de Tayland'da yaşanan, daha sonra 2008-2009'da küresel yaşanan krizden ve son olarak da şu an bizim Covid dolayısıyla yaşadığımız krizden bahsetti. İslami bankaların etkinliğinin olduğu ülkeleri ele aldı ve sonrasında üretim teknolojilerinin bu alanda çok önemli olduğundan bahsetti. Bu konuda aslında İslam ülkelerinin biraz daha kendilerini geliştirmeleri gerektiğinden söz etti. Segmental gerçekliklerden bahsetti. Bu alanda sürdürülebilirlik alanlarında yapılan faaliyetlerin İslami ekonomi alanında önemli değişimler sağlayabileceğini, aslında etkilere sahip olduğu üzerinde durdu. Bu alanda ülkelerin geliştirdiği stratejilerin de önemli olduğunu, poverty, yani fakirliğin azaltılması açısından İslam'ın yaklaşımlarının çok kritik olduğundan bahsetti. Bu alanda charity, zekat mevzularına değinmiş oldu. Özellikle Hazreti Ömer'in halifeliği sırasında o dönemde karşılaşılan ekonomik kriz, yani kriz değil belki tam olarak ama ekonomik sorunlara karşı aldığı önlemler ve yaklaşımının bizim için çok önemli bir örnek aslında teşkil ettiğini ve yani göz önünde bulundurması gerektiğinden söz etti. Son olarak tekafül kavramını ele aldı. İslami sermaye piyasaları hakkında bazı bilgiler verdi. Müşterileri tanıma üzerine bazı noktalara değindi. Son olarak üretilen aslında bir ürün olan sukuktan bahsetti. Sukuk, zekat ve vakıf kavramlarının önemini ele aldı. En son olarak da İslami finansın sahip olması gereken özelliklerden bahsetti. Onlardan birkaçını ben sıralayacak olursam, eşitlik temelli olması, teknik teknolojik yeterliliğe sahip olması gerekliliği, finansal inklüzyon gerçekleştirmesi gerektiği, hukuki açıdan bir harmoniye, bir uyumluluğa sahip olması gerektiği olarak da bentikten Pardon, tekten bahsettim. Her krizde imkanları aslında krizde imkan bulmaya çalışmak gerekliliğinden söz etti son olarak.
Evet. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Şimdi üçüncü tebliğimiz Ali Muhittin Karadagi hocamızın tebliği. Hocamız düştü mü acaba yayından? Aynen. Ali Muhittin Karadagi hocamızın tebliğinin başlığı İslam iktisadının kriz çözme yöntemleri veya krizlerin çözümünde İslam iktisadının İslam iktisadı gibi bir başlık. El-İktisad الإسلامي وحل الأزمات. Karadagi hocamız, Ali Muhittin Karadagi, İslam iktisadı denildiğinde akla gelen en önemli isimlerden birisi. Yani bilindiği gibi. 1949 yılında Süleymaniye, Karadağ'da doğuyor. Kuzey Irak. Süleymaniye'de kendi amcasından ve oradaki ulemadan taklit, yani klasik medrese eğitimi aldıktan ve icazet aldıktan sonra Bağdat'ta İmam-ı Azam Fakültesinden lisans derecesini alıyor. Daha sonra Ezher'de yüksek lisans ve doktorasını tamamlıyor. Muamelat üzerine, akitler ve muamelat üzerine. 1995 yılında profesör oluyor. Halen Dünya Müslüman Alimler Birliği Genel Sekreteri, aynı zamanda Avrupa Fetva ve Araştırma Kurumu'nun başkan yardımcısı. Katar Üniversitesi'nde ve değişik İslam ülkelerindeki birçok üniversitede fıkıh ve İslam iktisadı hocası olarak görev yaptı. Katar Üniversitesi İslam Hukuku Bölüm Başkanlığı yaptı. Birçok İslam iktisadı ile ilgilenen kurumların yönetiminde bulunmakta, danışma kurullarında görev yapmakta. Üstadın el-Kebir, Üstad Ali Muhittin Karadagi من أعلام الاقتصاد الإسلامي في العصر الحاضر. ولد في كرداغ التابعة لمحافظة السليمانية في شمال العراق، وقد أخذ الإجازة العلمية حسب الدراسة التقليدية من علماء بلده ومن أعمامه، ثم حصل على الليسانس من كلية الإمام الأعظم في بغداد عام 1975، ثم حصل على الماجستير والدكتوراه من الأزهر الشريف، وأصبح أستاذا في عام 1995، وهو الآن يشغل وظيفة الأمين العام للاتحاد العالمي للعلماء المسلمين، كما أنه رئيس مجلس الاستشاري الأعلى للتقريب بين المذاهب التابع لمنظمة إيسيسكو، وهو نائب رئيس المجلس الأوروبي للإفتاء، وهو عمل أستاذا وإداريا في كثير من الجامعات المرموقة في العالم الإسلامي مثل جامعة قطر وغيرها من الجامعات، ويعمل حاليا أيضا في كثير من المؤسسات الأكاديمية والمتخصصة في الاقتصاد الإسلامي كمستشار أو كعضو، وأيضا عضو في كثير من اللجان الشرعية للمؤسسات التمويلية والبنوك الإسلامية. أستاذنا سيقدم بحثه حول الاقتصاد الإسلامي وحل الأزمات، فليتفضل مشكورا.
جزاك الله خير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والعاقبة للمتقين، والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداه إلى يوم الدين. أصحاب السعادة وإخوتي وأخواتي، أحييكم جميعا بتحية طيبة مباركة، سلام الله عليكم ورحمته وبركاته. في البداية لا يسعني إلا أن أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل والثناء العاطر لرئاسة الجامعة وللجنة المنظمة لهذا المؤتمر، وللأخ الذي قدمني، ولكل من ساهم في هذا المؤتمر، فبارك الله في الجميع. وأنا أعتقد أن المؤتمر جاء في وقته، وبخاصة حينما نحن نبحث عن الأزمات الاقتصادية التي أصابت الإنسانية جمعاء، سواء كان في شق النظام الاشتراكي الشيوعي الذي سقط فعلا عام 1991 بسبب عدم قدرته على الاستمرار، لأنه كان قاصرا من حيث الأفكار التي تتفق مع الفطرة الإنسانية. وأما النظام الرأسمالي الذي امتد أكثر من 300 سنة فقد أصابته أزمات كبيرة جدا، سواء كانت الأزمة الأولى التي أصابت الرأسمالية الحرة من خلال المظاهرات التي قام بها العمال، وبإثر ذلك قيدت الرأسمالية وأصبحت الرأسمالية رأسمالية حرة. ثم أصابتها أزمات كبيرة وبخاصة الكساد العظيم عام 1928، وحينئذ عولجت هذه الأزمة أيضا بمجموعة من الأفكار، وأنا عددتها يصل إلى حوالي 9 مبادئ وحوالي 40 مشروعا صغيرا. حقيقة كل هذه المبادئ أو كل هذه المشروعات أيضا كانت في الإطار التقرب إن صح التعبير من فكرنا الاقتصادي الإسلامي. فعلى سبيل المثال حينما قدم كينز مشروعه لإنقاذ أمريكا من هذا الكساد، قدم بأن لا تكون هناك فوائد، أن تكون فوائد زيرو حتى تتجه الأموال والنقود نحو البنية والتنمية الشاملة. واقترح مجموعة من الأفكار، منها قضية المشاركات، وهي قائمة على شركة العنان كما نحن نسمي، سواء كانت مشروعات صغيرة مايكرو فاينانس أو كانت مشروعات متوسطة أو مشروعات كبيرة وغير ذلك من المشروعات. واستطاعت الرأسمالية أن تستفيد من هذه الأفكار وتقوم مرة أخرى، وإن صح التعبير كما أنا أسميه، أنها بسبب أنها ديمقراطية المنشأ، أنها تقبل الأفكار وقابلة للتعادل وقابلة للتغيير، لأنها قائمة على التشاور والديمقراطية، فاستطاعت أن تبقى. ثم جاءت أزمات أخرى كبيرة جدا، وآخرها كانت أزمة 2008. وهذه الأزمة وكذلك الأزمات السابقة، كثير من المحللين الاقتصاديين الذين نالوا جائزة نوبل وكذلك كثير من السياسيين وصفوا معظم هذه الأزمات بأنها أزمات أخلاقية، أن للأخلاق دورا كبيرا جدا. ومن هنا حقيقة يعني تنبه الغرب إلى الاقتصاد الإسلامي من خلال نجاح الصيرفة الإسلامية والمؤسسات المالية الإسلامية من هذه الأزمة المالية العالمية التي أصابت الإنسانية الجمعاء من خلال ما يسمى بفقاعات الرهونات في أمريكا وأثرها على العالم عام 2008، ولا زالت ذيولها مستمرة إلى وقتنا الحاضر. وحينئذ الرأسمالية مرة أخرى حقنت بمبادئ جديدة، ومعظمها حقيقة، وأنا أقول ذلك عن علم، أخذت من اقتصادنا ومن فكرنا الإسلامي أو من الفكر الاشتراكي. هنا ظهرت مسألة الحوكمة، هنا ظهرت مسألة كفاية رأس المال، هنا ظهرت مسألة الاقتصاد الاجتماعي، هنا ظهرت حقيقة مجموعة من الأفكار الكبيرة جدا. وكل هذه الأفكار في واقعها وحقيقتها أفكار إسلامية محضة، وقد تشترك معها حقيقة الاشتراكية، ولكنها في أساسها وأصولها إنها يعني أفكار ومبادئ إسلامية. ولذلك حينما عقد مؤتمر كبير في ماليزيا حول الاقتصاد الاجتماعي، وكان قد دعي لها عدد كبير من يعني مدراء ومسؤولي البنوك المركزية، وكان الحديث قد جاء من الغرب بأنهم يعلموننا الاقتصاد الاجتماعي والمسؤولية الجماعية والمسؤولية الاجتماعية، فتصديت لهم ببحث ثابت بأن هذه القضايا هي بضاعتنا مع الأسف الشديد وردت إلينا، ولكن هذه البضاعة بما أنها ليس لها محام جيد أو أن محامينا مع الأسف الشديد لا يدافع حسب الأصول، فأصبحت كلاء مباحا يؤخذ دون أن يسند إلى أي شيء. وفعلا تمخض المؤتمر في ماليزيا إلى تبني أن هذه الفكرة فكرة إسلامية صحيحة، وعلينا أن نطور هذه الأفكار. واليوم في ظل أزمة كورونا تبينت مرة أخرى لا أخلاقية الرأسمالية، وربما كلكم يعني ليس الأمر بعيدا، تلاحظون ما حدث لإيطاليا، خاصة في إيطاليا. كادت إيطاليا أن تخرج من الاتحاد الأوروبي لأنها وقفت وحيدة ولم تسعفه أي دولة، كل دولة تقول نفسي نفسي، وحتى الرأسمالية لم تسعف الدول الرأسمالية. وظهر كذلك مشاكل أخلاقية في معظم الدول الأوروبية، في أمريكا وفي إيطاليا وفي أسبانيا وفي كثير، خاصة بالنسبة لدور العناية ودور العجزة، حيث مات منهم آلاف دون أن يسأل عنهم أحد. هذه الأزمات الاقتصادية الأخلاقية وكذلك وتصحبها أزمات مادية حقيقة تحتاج منا مرة أخرى أن نعود إلى مشروع متكامل وليس إلى مشروع جزئي. أنا في نظري الآن، وربما إن شاء الله جامعتكم الموقرة بالتعاون مع بقية الجامعات والكليات ومع القامات العلمية الاقتصادية والفقهية، نحن نستطيع قادرون بإذن الله تعالى جميعا أننا نقدم مشروعا متكاملا للعالم، مشروع إنقاذي، لأن هذا دين أساسا جاء رحمة للعالمين ولم ينزل رحمة للمسلمين. وحينما قابلتني حقيقة إحدى أو وزيرة الاقتصاد في فرنسا في وقتها بعد الأزمة، وتكلمت قال: هل يعني أننا إذا أخذنا بالاقتصاد الإسلامي أننا أصبحنا مسلمين؟ قلت: لا أبدا، الإسلام هو يقدم الدواء، والدواء لا يعرف له، لا يسأل أحد من الذي صنع الدواء، لكننا نحن هذا الدين هو يقدم كما سماه رب العالمين بالشفاء. فلذلك علينا نحن في مجالات الاقتصاد أن نقدم مشروعا في هذه المجالات، أن نقدم فعلا. الآن أصبح لدينا نحن مجموعة كبيرة من العلوم والدراسات والمباحث والمراكز الأساسية للاقتصاد الإسلامي والاقتصاد الوضعي. فنحن نقول من خلال هذه المؤسسات المباركة ومن خلال هؤلاء العلماء والقامات الشامخة في الاقتصاد الإسلامي أننا نقدم فكرة إنسانية، لأنه هذا هو الإسلام والدين الإنسانية، ليس بالضرورة نسميه اقتصادا إسلاميا. الآن الغربيون يحتاجون إلى ما يسمى الاقتصاد البديل. نحن نستطيع أن نقدم هذا الاقتصاد البديل، سواء كان كعلم، نقدم مبادئ العلم الاقتصادي الممزوج، هذه المبادئ أو الممزوجة بالأخلاقيات، وكذلك وإن استطعنا أن ندخل فيها العقيدة، فهذه هي المحركة الأساسية. الأخلاق والعقيدة هي المحركة الأساسية. ثم بعد ذلك نتحدث عن دوافع العلم الاقتصادي. دوافع العلم الاقتصادي كما نحن درسناه ودرسناه أيضا، وكما قال آدم سميث، هو الدافع الأساسي للاقتصاد هو قضية رفاهية الفرد، وحتى الدافع للتقدم العلمي رفاهية الفرد. إحنا عندنا لا نمنع من رفاهية الفرد، لكن عندنا ثلاثة أغراض أساسية مهمة جدا تحركنا. أولا دافع التعمير، هو أنشأكم من الأرض واستعمركم فيها، وهذا الدافع مأمور إلهي فريضة شرعية كما قال علماءنا السابقون، وكما قال جصاص الحنفي المتوفى 310 قال إن استعمار الأرض يعني تعمير الأرض فريضة شرعية. وطبعا عند الأحناف كلمة فريضة أقوى من كلمة الواجب، أنها ثابتة بدليل استعمار الأرض، تعمير الأرض بكل ما تعني الكلمة، أي استخراج ما فيها، وهذا لا يتحقق إلا بالعلوم المبدعة، فريضة شرعية. وهذا يعني أن المسلمين جميعا آثمون. هذا الدافع الأول. الدافع الثاني كذلك رضاء الله سبحانه وتعالى. الدافع الثالث التكافل الاجتماعي من خلال الغنى. الدافع الرابع أو خليها أي دافع هو الرفاهية الفرد وما أشبه ذلك. ثم ننتقل بعد ذلك
10 دقائق.
تمام 10 دقائق جيد، يعني باقي لي 10 ولا لا؟
نعم أي نعم باقي 10 إن شاء الله.
ما شاء الله. لا جزاك الله، وأنت رجل كريم ونشكركم. الدافع أيضا نتكلم أيضا حقيقة عن النظام. الجزء الثاني من الاقتصاد النظام هو الأيديولوجية التي تتحكم في النشاط الاقتصادي، في الإنتاج والاستهلاك وغير ذلك. وهنا أنا أعتقد وأعرض على إخواني أن نضيف شيئا مهما في النشاط الاقتصادي، وأنا أضفته في كتبي، وهو مسألة التملك. إحنا مع الأسف الشديد جميع أو معظم من كتبوا حتى من الاقتصاديين الإسلاميين حينما تكلموا عن النشاط الاقتصادي بدأوا بالإنتاج، ثم الاستهلاك، ثم التداول، ثم التوزيع وإعادة التوزيع. أين التملك؟ هذا هو ميزتنا الإسلامية في الاقتصاد. فلذلك إحنا الآن إشكاليتنا في البنوك الإسلامية، حينما تتجه البنوك الإسلامية إلى الشكليات، إلى العقود الصورية، لأننا ما علمناهم على أسس صحيحة. أهم أساس للاقتصاد الإسلامي هو التملك، ولذلك اقتصادنا الإسلامي هو اقتصاد العين، اقتصاد الملك. اقتصاد الرأسمالي هو اقتصاد الائتمان، كريدت، اقتصاد الملاءة. ولذلك لا يهمهم يعني المشروع، وإنما يهمهم ملاءة الشخص وقدرته على الوفاء. حينما أنا أجعل التملك الشرط الأول للنشاط، حينئذ الإنتاج لابد أن يكون من التملك، والاستهلاك يجب، وهذا صحيح في النظر الإسلامي، وكذلك التبادل يجب، وهكذا. إذن هذه قضية نحن نقدم لهم مشروع نظام اقتصادي، خاصة ما يتعلق بالملكية التي هي العمود الفقري للاقتصاد بكل الاعتبارات. الأمر الآخر بعد ذلك مسألة السياسات. نحتاج حقيقة أن نجتمع مع إخواني الاقتصاديين جميعا، أن نقدم لهم بعد دراسات ورش العمل السياسات الاقتصادية والسياسات النقدية والسياسات المالية. وطبعا إسلامنا العظيم هو يجمع بين الثوابت وبين المتغيرات، فبالتالي وثوابت من حسن الحظ ليست كبيرة، القطعيات ليست كثيرة، لا تقيدنا، وإنما تربطنا بما فيه المصلحة، تربطنا بما فيه درء المفسدة، تربطنا بما يحقق المنافع للناس أجمعين. فلذلك نحن حقيقة نستطيع أن ننطلق من المبادئ التي هي بمثابة العمود الفقري إلى المتغيرات الكثيرة في النظام الاقتصادي وفي السياسات بكل أنواعها، ثم ننتقل بعد ذلك إلى النظريات. لا ينبغي أننا نعتمد على النظريات الغربية، لأنه النظريات الغربية ينظر فيها إلى الأشخاص، ينظر فيها إلى المكان، وقد تكون النظرية في الغرب ناجحة، ولكن لا تكون نظرية في الشرق ناجحة لأسباب كثيرة جدا قد لا يسع المجال لذكرها. كذلك أيضا حقيقة الجانب الأخير والمهم وهو قضية التحليل الاقتصادي بمرجعية إسلامية. هذا مهم جدا، لا ينبغي أننا نعتمد على التحليل الاقتصادي بمرجعية غربية، لأننا في التحليل الاقتصادي، وأنا كتبت كتابا بهذا المجال والحمد لله وطبع هنا في تركيا، وجعلت نظرية أرأيتية للإمام أبي حنيفة رحمه الله أساسا لهذا المشروع، وهو ما يسمى اليوم بالعصف الذهني. ثم تحولت وحولت فقه المآلات من كونه دليلا إلى آلة وأداة للتحليل. ثم بعد ذلك استفدت كذلك من أمور وطلع فعلا نظرية متكاملة بمرجعية إسلامية. ثم بعد ذلك المرحلة الأخيرة هي قضية المشاريع وقضية والمنتجات. وعلينا حقيقة كما سمعت من بعض الإخوة يعني أن نهتم بإعادة النظر في أمورنا القديمة. يعني مثلا في قضية الزكاة عندنا إشكالية كبيرة في الزكاة. الزكاة اليوم لا تحقق مقاصدها الشرعية التي ذكرها القرآن الكريم بالنص، حيث قال خذ من أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم، هذا الجانب الداخلي، وتزكيهم، هذا الجانب الخارجي، أي التنمية الداخلية والتنمية الخارجية، وهذا هو كفة الميزان. هذا الإسلام كله قائم على الداخلي والخارج. الآن إشكاليات الكبرى في العالم هي الفساد، هي الجانب عدم الأخلاق، وهو داخل في هذا التزكية النفسية، يزكيهم، وهذه التزكية هي الأساس، وهو قوله تطهير. والتزكية الثانية أي زيادة المال، زيادة الصحة، كل هذه زيادات التنمية الخارجية. فمثلا أين دور الزكاة في هذين المجالين؟ قليل جدا. أنا دائما حسبت الزكاة عام 2007 وبإحصائية دقيقة وبفريق عمل وصلت أن زكاة الخليج 100 مليار، وزكاة العالم الإسلامي 300 مليار إلى 400 مليار، يعني أي 400 مليار دولار إلى 500 مليار دولار. أين هذه الأموال؟ أين أثرها؟ لذلك نحتاج إلى إعادة النظر في الجمع، وكذلك حتى في قضية التنمية. الزكاة اليوم حقيقة للاستهلاك، وهذا غير صحيح. عمر بن عبد العزيز حينما طبق الزكاة بدأ جعل الزكاة 3 أصناف: قسم للمستهلكين غير قادرين على العمل، وقسم آخر لأصحاب يعني الديون والمشاكل أيضا والغارمين، يشمل بالمناسبة الآن جائحة كورونا تدخل فيه والغارمين في نظري. النوع الثالث وهو الثلث أو ثلثين، حوله إلى شراء أدوات الإنتاج لهؤلاء. فلذلك خلال 2.5 و6 أشهر و17 يوما، سامحوني، و11 ساعة، استطاع أن يترك المسلمين وليس بينهم فقير. نستطيع، لأنه الآن شوف يحسب 300 مليار 400 مليار، هل يبقى شيء بالله عليكم؟ لذلك كذلك الوقف، كما أشار أخي الحبيب الدكتور إلى الوقف واستمعت إليه. الوقف له دور كبير جدا وواسع جدا، وأنا حقيقة أدخل الوقف في قوله سبحانه وتعالى: من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا. هذا القرض الحسن الذي لا يرد، وهو جعله الله سبحانه هو وقف، لأنه وهذا في دراسة ليش؟ عندنا الجهاد هذا لحفاظ على الأمة من العدو الخارجي. القرض الحسن مع بقي لحفاظ الأمة من داخل، لأنه إذا داخلنا فقراء محتاجون لم نحمي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. الأمن الحقيقي إنما يتكامل بالأمن الاقتصادي. فنحن لا بد من أن طلبي وأكتفي بذلك، لا أوجه ندائي أننا نبدأ بالمشاريع العملية، وأن نقدم للإنسانية الشفاء، وأن نقدم لأنفسنا أولا كذلك العلاج، ثم ننطلق إلى الخارج. إذا فعلنا ذلك فحقيقة فقد حققنا الخير الكثير. وبارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خيرا، وإني سعيد والله أعلم. والآن إخوتي، حتى الآن أنا في اجتماع، إخوتي كلهم يستمعون لكم ويدعون لكم، وبارك الله فيكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
جزاكم الله خيرا، ونحن ندعو لكم وللإخوة جميعا هناك، وننتظركم إن شاء الله في بلدكم في تركيا في أقرب وقت، حتى
إن شاء الله
نكمل هذه الجلسات وجها لوجه في أقرب وقت إن شاء الله.
ولا تنسى من
دعواتكم.
فنلتقي إن شاء الله.
الله يبارك فيكم. Şükran cezilen Üstad el-Kerim. Murat Hocam, tercüme yapıyor muyuz? Sayit Hocamızla mı devam ediyoruz?
Evet hocam, hazır arkadaşlar.
Tamam, buyurun.
Hocamız önce üniversiteye dolayı teşekkür ederek başladı. Sonrasında kapitalizm, ekonomik sistemlerden bahsetti ve kapitalizmin uzun zamandır büyük krizlere maruz kaldığını, krizlerle baş ettiğinden bahsetti ve bu krizler hakkında bir takım bilgiler verdi. Sonrasında büyük Batı devletlerinin bu krizlerin aslında ekonomik krizden ziyade ahlaki kriz olduğunu, bizzat Batı devletleri tarafından bunun ifade edildiğini söyledi. Ve İslam ekonomisinin bu krizlerden çıkış için bir kurtuluş yolu mesabesinde olduğunu söyledi. Kapitalizmin de aslında birçok ilkesinin İslam ekonomisinden ve sosyalizmden de birçok ilkesini alma noktasında faydalandığından bahsetti. Bugün yani krizler hakkında tarihi bir seyir olarak bir takım bilgiler verdi. Sonra en son koronaya geldiğimizde bugün koronayla artık kapitalizmin bir ahlakı olmadığının net bir şekilde ortaya çıktığından bahsetti. Her devletin kendi çıkarlarını düşünüp bu şeyde bütün devletlerin hocamızın ifadesiyle nefsi şeklinde kendini düşündüğünden bahsetti. İktisadi ahlaki krizlerden dolayı bizim İslam ekonomisi hakkında kamil bir yani tam bir ekonomik proje sunmamıza bütün insanlığın ihtiyacı olduğundan bahsetti. Bunun sadece Müslümanlar değil bütün insanlar için gerekli olduğundan özellikle bahsetti ve buna Hazreti Peygamber'in rahmeten lil müslimin değil rahmeten lil alemin olmasını delil getirdi. Bunun için de bizim araştırmalar, incelemeler yapmamız gerektiğinden bahsetti. Ve bizim İslami bir ekonomi projesi, bir İslam ekonomisi ilmini kendimizin yeniden kurmamız gerektiğinden bahsetti ve bunun ahlakla iç içe olması gerektiğini özellikle vurguladı. Adının İslami olması şart değil, içeriği İslam olsun yeter dedi. Ve bunun için bu atılacak adımlardan bahsetti. Bunlar arasında öncelikle bireyi ele almamız gerektiğini söyledi. Birey geliştirilmeli, bireyden başlanmalı gelişmeye. Ve Cessas'ın, Hanefi fıkıh usul alimi Cessas'ın yeryüzünün imarının bize farz olduğu görüşünü nakletti ve Hanefilerde farz dediğimiz zaman hem subutu hem delaleti kati yani kesin hani hiç şüphe olmayan şeylere ancak Hanefilerin farz demesini vurguladı. Cessas buna farz dediyse bundan bizim kurtuluşumuz yok. Yeryüzünün imarı bizim için farzdır dedi. Eğitim ve teknoloji ayağının ihmal edilmemesi gerektiğini özellikle vurguladı. Ve sonra hocamızın Türkçe'ye çevrilen İslam iktisadına giriş kitabında da özellikle vurguladığı bir konu var. Ona burada da değindi. Ekonomi kitapları, ekonomik faaliyetlerden bahsederken üretimden başlıyorlar. Üretim, tüketim, mübadele, dağıtım ve tekrar dağıtım şeklinde bu 5 aşamayı işliyorlar. Hocamız dedi ki bunun temelinde mülk edinme vardır. Mülk edinme olmadan bu 5 aşama havada kalır. Özellikle İslam ekonomisinde çünkü İslam ekonomisi para üzerinden değil, üretim üzerinden gittiği için mülk edinmenin özellikle önemli olduğundan bahsetti. Daha sonra diğer aşamalar gelir dedi. Sonrasında ekonomik faaliyet aşamaları hakkında bu az önce bahsettiğim aşamalar hakkında detaylandırarak örnekler verdi. Bu özellikle yeniden dağıtım, son aşama olan yeniden dağıtım aşamasında zekata değindi. Bazı ülkelerin yüksek miktar, İslam ülkelerinin yüksek miktarda zekat gelirleri olduğundan bahsetti ama bunları nerede kullanıyoruz biz dedi. Yeniden dağıtım faaliyeti aşamasında bunları oldukça işlevsel kullanabileceğimizden bahsetti. Karz-ı Hasen, vakıf gibi geleneğimizde olan kurumların tekrardan işletilmesinin gereği ve öneminden bahsetti. Sonrasında yine tekrar vurgulayarak bizim İslami sistemle önce kendimize sonra da tüm insanlar şifa olabilecek bir potansiyelde olduğumuzdan bahsetti. Sonrasında teşekkür etti.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz tercümeniz için. Şimdi 4. tebliğimiz Cezayir asıllı ancak Malezya'da şu anda hocamız görev yapıyor. Said Buhrava hocamız Cezayir Üniversitesi'nden mezun oluyor. Cezayir Üniversitesi'nden 1991 yılında fıkıh ve usulü fıkıh alanında lisans derecesi sahibi. Daha sonra yüksek lisans ve doktorasını Malezya Uluslararası İslam Üniversitesi'nde tamamlıyor. Hocamız Said hocamız birçok İslami finans akademik kurumlarında ve banka şer'i meclislerinde, danışma kurullarında görev yapmakta. Malezya Merkez Bankası'na bağlı Uluslararası İslami İktisat Araştırma Akademisi'nin araştırma bölümü başkanı ve İNSEİF'te aynı zamanda hocalık yapmakta. Afin İslami Bankası'nın yönetim kurulu başkanı ve danışma kurulu üyesi. Yine kendisi İslam iktisadı konusunda uluslararası çalışmalarıyla tanınan kıymetli bir hocamız. Hoş geldin diyoruz kendisine. Tebliğinin konusu Es-Sahvel Maliye Ba'de Ezemet Korona ve Furas Tesir İstidame. Korona krizi sonrası finansal canlılık ve sürdürülmesinin hızlandırılmasına yönelik fırsatlar gibi bir tercüme yapılabilir. Evet. Üstadın el-Fadıl Üstad Said Buhreva min mevalid Cezayir aslan ve hasala alel magister min Camiatil Cezayir hasala alel lisans bakalorya min Camiatil Cezayir am 1991 وحصل على الماجستير والدكتوراه من الجامعة الإسلامية العالمية في ماليزيا، وهو أيضا من أعلام الاقتصاد الإسلامي وأركانه، وعضو في كثير من اللجان الشرعية، وهو رئيس قسم الأبحاث في الأكاديمية العالمية للدراسات الاقتصاد الإسلامي المعروف بإسرا، وأيضا عضو هيئة التدريس في معهد دراسات التدريس المعهد العالمي لتدريس الاقتصاد الإسلامي إنسيف، وهو رئيس مجلس إدارة بنك أفين الإسلامي، وأيضا عضو في الهيئة الشرعية في ذلك البنك، وله أبحاث قيمة ودراسات قيمة تنير أمام الباحثين في الاقتصاد الإسلامي. وموضوع بحثه هو الصحوة المالية بعد أزمة كورونا وفرص تسريع الاستدامة. فليتفضل مشكورا أستاذنا الجليل.
جزاك الله خير، بارك الله فيك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. وبعد, first of all, I would like to thank the moderator, Prof. Ertuğrul, and I thank also the University of Karabük University for extending the invitation. I thank also the organizing committee who have spent times, days, and nights to prepare for this one. With a special thank to Dr. Hussam, who was in continuous communication with me. I don't know, I can present also, I am like Prof, my Ustad, Prof Mabid. I can present in 2 languages. So I think, and my presentation is prepared in English. However, I will try to, I think, present it in English. If there is a need to translate some of the context, I will do it to just save time for the sister. I will try to do it within the time allocated. So I have selected this topic because the post-COVID financial has created some awareness and awakening, and also has created new opportunities that the Islamic finance fraternity should not miss. Because even the conventional, they have changed even the mode of approach of financing, the horizon, and the even part of it, even of their philosophy. They were pushed. Of course, it's from, to some extent, from pragmatic perspective, because they got no choice except to change the strategy and change even the vision or the mission to address the Islamic finance or the finance post-COVID. So it's an opportunity. I don't know how to, hopefully that, okay, that's good. So now as an introduction, now we all know, I will not go into details, that the COVID was not expected to reach that scale of impact on the whole global world, because for the, this is 21, by the way, it's August 21, the 39 million confirmed cases, 1 million plus death, over 20 million people had recovered from this one, and the impact has affected more than 200 countries. And many countries face multiple crises, because the impact was first health, but it was pushed to be health, financial, even mental crisis. Now we all hear the news of people committing suicide. I think 80 here in Malaysia, they have committed suicide because of the impact of this crisis all over the world. And now they have even initiated counters or apps to address the mental health free of charge because of the impact of this is the complex impact. And also the Asian Development Bank, they have the global, they say the global economy may suffer near to 6 trillion. This is just in Asia. The United Nations Work Agency cautions that hundreds of millions of people could be left without work. So the poverty may reach a scale which was not expected at all. Also, when it comes to the core impact of this COVID, which is related to sustainability or financial inclusions and all those concepts of maqasidi-based perspective, is that the level of indebtedness has rose 4.8 trillion to 296 in June 2021. So, and even this director of sustainability research said that if the borrowing continue at this pace, we expect global debt to exceed the 300 trillion. This is based on Reuters, September 2021. And this pandemic has clearly indicated that the correlation between, there is a correlation, interaction between many factors. There is no point to neglect, to ignore the indebted person, either the financier, the one who received finance or loan, because or just ignore him, because at the end, defaulting of the people receiving finance will impact the whole financial system, global financial system, and it will have a systemic risk. That's why they got no choice, no option except to discuss the sustainability and financial inclusion, because it's going to be what is called the win-win situation. Now, the call for sustainable, or what is called from the Sharia perspective, maqasidi-based financing. We know that sustainable finance refers to any form of financial services integrating environmental, social, and governance, which is the abbreviation of ESG, criteria into the business or investment decision for the lasting benefits. Lasting, this is important, is not a temporary benefit, lasting benefit for both clients and society at large. I remember 10 years, 15 years ago, we used to say that this is maqasid Sharia is intending for something which is sustainable, it's based on shared prosperity, is based on forward looking. But people, they were influenced by the Western definitions approach. But when it comes from them, they came back to say, oh, yeah, this is sustainability is very important, and we have to adopt it. And I will just give you the definition of Al-Fasi to see, and previously Al-Ghazali and Ibn al-Qayyim, to see that the concept of sustainability, the concept of shared prosperity, the concept of thinking about others, the concept of believing that if the others will suffer, it will it will have an impact on you, and you will also suffer the consequences, which means your prosperity is related to taking care of others, to attend to others, to have what is called the financial inclusion. Al-Fasi definition is beautiful, and he passed away just 1973. He is a Moroccan scholar. He said that the overall objective of the Sharia is to make the earth flourish with civilization, to maintain the system of collective livelihood. This is sustainability, livelihood upon it, and to sustain its goodness by making good those who were placed upon it to carry out the God's, Allah's will, so that they will accomplish the duty assigned to them of establishing justice and integrity, properly developing and using the intellect, improving the world, discovering and extracting its resources, and administrating all that for the benefit of everyone. And this is what is called financial and inclusion, and also what is now promoted by the United Nations and World Bank, shared prosperity. That's why, from our maqasid perspective, maqasid Sharia in its holistic approach aims at elevating human to the highest rank by making them upright, spreading virtue among them, establishing public interest, fighting the promotion of harm, and ensuring balanced relationship with the self, the community, and the universe in which they live. And this is what is now translated in the modern application in financial inclusion, sustainable development, sustainable financing, and all those terminologies which are considered as the fundamental of fiqh al-mu'amalat from the Islamic perspective. There was a push for, because after the financial crisis 2008-2009, there was a push for financial inclusion, sustainable development, which is maqasidi-based financing. What pushed them more is that 1% of the world rich have acquired 80% of the wealth. And they say that in 2017, and I have got the 2018-19, it's almost the same. the average salary of the worker in the G7 countries increased between 2011 and 2017 to less than 3%. And now, 2019, it was reduced by 0.9%, while the profit of the rich shareholders increased in the same period to 31%. This is the disparity between the profit of those shareholders and the profit of those who are making money for the shareholders. And also there was a study, statistics saying CEO's compensation has grown 940% since 1978 until 2019, whereas the salary of those who are making wealth money for them has increased just during this huge period by only 12%. And the climate temperature rise to 2 degrees, 15% of financial operation deal with real economy sector and 85%. And now they are saying that it's even more than 90% of financial operations are for price speculation because they are not affecting the real economy. That's what pushed for the sustainable financing. And also there was a call for what is called a replacement of GDP with what is called GIP, genuine progress indicator. They say that the GPI, which is genuine progress indicator, takes everything that GDP uses into account, but adds other numbers that represent the cost of negative impact associated with economic activities, such as the cost of crime, the cost of ozone depletion, and the cost of resources depletion, among others, which deals with increasing products of goods and commodities. This is a very important move, even from the West, to think how to say comprehensively to the impact of their financing of their investment. The new I will try to summarize. The new approach of finance and investment, now we can see what is called responsible investment, impact investment, socially responsible investment, sustainable development, shared prosperity, which was initiated initially by World Bank. They speak about prosperity should be shared with all segments of the community, of the society. And also there was a new, initiative by Malaysia in 2019. They have launched the Vision 2030 for shared prosperity, United ESG 17 goals, value-based intermediation that was launched by the central bank. Those I think approaches, it's worth to study, to examine, because this is the new approach of ensuring sustainable financing, sustainable development. And there is now a new call for positive screening. Now they say that Islamic finance usually they were just concerned with halal, Sharia non-compliant. No. Now even it may be Sharia compliant, but if it will affect the environment, it will affect the health of the workers, it will affect the future of the generation. It has to be from the positive screening, it has to be given negative mark, though they have achieved a huge profit, but they will be rated negatively. So that's why what is called positive screening. And I advise to go to the new initiative from the Securities Commission of Malaysia to engage, to embark into what is called positive screening for their all Sharia compliant financial investment. Okay, now opportunities for sustainable financing. I will just try to be brief. Islamic finance can be part of the COVID-19 response through the alignment between the underlying principle of Islamic finance, as I explained, maqasidi-based and sustainable and responsible investment. How to do this one? Enhancing the role of sustainable development instruments such as VBI, value-based intermediation, SRI, ESG, they can play a huge role. And apart from a sustainable development instrument, we have the awqaf, we have the zakat. Now, the experience of Turkey is huge in terms of awqaf. They are the most advanced country from the history until now in this perspective. Now in Malaysia, we are embarking into awqaf. All banks, they are coming together to embark into sustainable development by creating awqaf fund to support microfinance, to support those who are affected by the pandemic. And also they are using zakat, and they have created what is called zakatpreneur to have the positive impact on zakat on those recipients, instead of getting money, consuming money, and coming back to get money, to assist them to have their own project business. There is sadaqah, and they have created what is called sadaqah house for COVID. And historically, there is also Malaysia, they have issued sukuk that are linked to specific SDG, and Saudi Arabia, they have issued IDB, Islamic Development Bank, they have issued 1.5 billion worth of sukuk for COVID purpose to support those who are in need, and which is part of the sustainable development approach. I did mention IDB 1.5 million. Zakat agencies also, they should play a role, especially they should enhance their governance to play a role in contributing to this maqasidi based, which is sustainable development, financial inclusion. And the Zakat agency here in Malaysia, and I believe in Turkey also, they are playing a very good role. Awqaf, we have proposed here at ISRA cash waqf sukuk issuance, and we have proposed it to IDB, and it was in the final stage, but because of this pandemic, they are giving some priorities to other projects. I believe that's I have slides on sustainable financing and risk sharing. I have shown that the best approach to attain the sustainable finance, the maqasidi-based financing, is to approach what is called the risk sharing, because risk transfer, as I mentioned in my paper, is diametrically opposed to risk sharing. Under this arrangement or contract, parties do not equitably share in the future risks, and return and future risks are pre-established and set ex ante, which means before the event. Under this risk transfer arrangement, a lender does not normally share in any upside, and thus has an inherently lower level of concern. This is important over future efficiency and performance that the concern of a partner who shares in risks and rewards. Well, that's why the core focus will be on creditworthiness, not in the added value of the project. I will not go further. I have another points here, but I have to respect the time. And I believe that this is maybe the final one. I will stop here. Profit and sustainability, the economic justice, norms of justice and uncertainty. The Islamic ideal of economic justice stands on the principle that says what each factor ultimately gets is what it contributes to a total output. This is based on the Quran. That's why the risk sharing is a fundamental concept that needs to be implemented to ensure successful implementation, successful achievement of maqasidi-based financing or financial inclusion or sustainable development or what is called shared prosperity. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. شكرا جزيلا أستاذنا الفاضل. شرفتمونا وباركتمونا ببحثكم القيم. إن شاء الله نتمنى أن نراكم أيضا في أقرب وقت. تشرفونا ونلتقي بكم وجها لوجه أيضا. Tercümeyi alıyor muyuz Murat Hocam?
Evet hocam, müsaadenizle.
Estağfurullah.
Profesör Said Buhrava öncelikle konuşmasında bu konuyu seçme nedeninden bahsetti. Covid sonrası bir farkındalık oluşturulması, ekonomik bir uyanış aslında gerçekleştirilebilmesi açısından bir takım pragmatik stratejiler geliştirilmesi konusundan bahsetti. Bu anlamda aslında başlangıçta Dünya Sağlık Örgütü'nün Covid'e ilişkin yayınladığı bazı istatistikleri ele aldı. Öncelikle Covid'in dünyayı nasıl etkilediğini, hangi ülkelerde ya da kaç ülkede ne kadar etkili olduğundan bahsetti. Başlangıçta aslında değindiği önemli noktalardan biri, başlangıçta bu yani salgının ekonomik bir kriz, sağlıkla ilgili, sadece sağlıkla ilgili bir krizmiş gibi görmüş olmasına rağmen zamanla önce ekonomik, özellikle de sonralarda mental sağlıkla ilgili bazı problemlere neden oldu. Yani aslında çok büyük bir krize, sadece ekonomik açıdan bakılmaması gerektiğini söyledi. Bunun aslında Asya ülkelerinde bazı intiharlara da son zamanlarda özellikle neden olduğundan da bahsetti. Burada poverty, yani fakirlik, yoksulluk ile ilgili bazı durumlardan söz etti. Bunun karşısında alınması gereken önlemlerden, yani bu ekonomik krizin Covid bağlamında aslında bütün dünyayı, yani küçük ülkeler veya büyük ülkeler fark etmeksizin etkilemiş olması, bütün sektörün aslında aralarındaki ilişkileri de etkilemiş olmasından bahsetti. Global sistemleri tabii ki de etkiledi, fakat bu açıdan bakıldığı zaman finansal alanda sürdürülebilirlik açısından alınan adımlar daha çok önem teşkil etti. Yani global anlamda bir ekonomik krize neden oldu, evet, ama finansal bir sürdürülebilirlik gerçekleştirildi. Bu anlamda bazı yani önemli değişikliklerle sonuçlanabilecek adımlar atıldı. Bu önemli dedi. Ve özellikle aslında konuşması boyunca şeriatın amaçları, yani makasedi şeriat bağlamında bu temellerin aslında bir bakış açısı, en temel bakış açısı teşkil etmesi gerektiğinden söz etti. Başkalarının da ihtiyaçlarını düşünmek, aslında göz önünde bulundurmanın, yani böyle bir anlam taşımasının aslında İslam'ın yani öncelediği bir durum olduğundan söz etti. Dünyayı daha iyi yaşanılabilir bir alan haline getirmek aslında şeriatın temel amacının olduğunu söyledi. Yani herkesin faydasına çalışmak gerektiği üzerinde durdu. Yatırım konuları ile ilgili bazı açıklamalarda bulundu. Bu açıklamalarla ilgili İslami finans konusunda yeni bir çağrının da aslında gerçekleştirildiği üzerinde durdu. Gelecekteki nesillerin daha aslında yaşanabilir bir dünya ya sahip olabilmeleri açısından bugün atılabilecek bazı adımlar bağlamında aslında değerlendirdi durumu. Sonrasında sürdürülebilir finansın imkanlarından söz etti. Aslında Türkiye'nin ve Malezya'nın özellikle bu alanda yani kendini geliştirdiği iyi bir noktada olduğundan söz etti. Özellikle vakıf konusunda, zekat, sadaka konularında finansal açıdan bunların çok önem teşkil ettiğini, iyi kullanılması gerektiğini, aslında bunların çok güzel imkanlar olduğunu söyledi. Ve hukuk kavramından bahsetti. İslami finans alanında aslında geliştirilen ürünler bağlamında ele aldı. Vakıflar konusunda özellikle yani vakıf konusunda iyi bir aslında imkan geliştirilebileceği üzerinde durdu. Risk ve rewards, yani fayda, fırsatlar açısından karşılıklı bir paylaşımın açık ve yani insanların açık ve istekli olması, yani bu şekilde olacak iki tarafın olması ele alınması gereken en önemli konsept olduğundan söz etti. Bu konsept olayının da makasit temelli, yani temel aslında şeriat temelli finansın gerçekleşmesi için de göz önünde bulundurulması gereken ilk meselelerden biri olduğunu söyledi ve konuşmasını bu şekilde noktalandırdı.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Yani neşkurul muayyideteyn ala hadi tercematil kayyime, çok gerçekten çok başarılı bir şekilde takip edip arkadaşlarımızın bu ortamda, hızlı ortamda bu şekilde bir tercüme gerçekten tebrik ediyoruz. Bizim için, ilerisi için bizi mutlandırıyor böyle arkadaşlarımızı görmek. Onu önceden araya bir söylemiş olayım. Şimdi son açılış oturumunda son tebliğimiz Profesör Doktor Sayın KAYADİBİ hocamızın tebliği. Sayın KAYADİBİ hocamız Karabük Üniversitesi'nde şu anda Profesör İşletme Fakültesi'nde Finans ve Bankacılık bölümünde profesör olarak görev yapmakta. Lisans hem Mısır Ezel Üniversitesi'nden hem Türkiye İlahiyat'tan lisans mezuniyeti var. Daha sonra yüksek lisans ve doktorasını Durham Üniversitesi'nde İslami İlimler Orta Doğu ve İslam Araştırmaları Merkezi'nde yapmış. Kendisinin İslam iktisadı alanında çok kıymetli çalışmaları var. Ülkemizin önde gelen İslam iktisadı uzmanlarından. Bugün sunacağı tebliğin başlığı COVID-19 krizi öncesi ve sonrasında İslam iktisadına bir bakış. Özellikle devletin rolü zannederim krizi aşmada. Hocamız İngilizce mi verecek, Türkçe mi bilemiyorum tabii ki tebliğini. الورقة الأخيرة في الجلسة الافتتاحية لأستاذنا الأستاذ صائم كاياديبي وهو أستاذ في جامعة كارابوك في كلية الإدارة قسم التمويل والبنوك وحاصل على الليسانس من جامعة الأزهر وأيضا من تركيا وحصل على الدراسات العليا الماجستير والدكتوراه من جامعة دارم وله دراسات قيمة في مجال الاقتصاد الإسلامي وهو من الباحثين البارزين في هذا المجال في بلدنا تركيا وبحثه عن نظرة عامة ممكن نترجمها بأنها نظرة عامة على الاقتصاد والتنمية الإسلامي أثناء وبعد كوفيد-19 ودور الدولة لتجاوز هذه الأزمة. فليتفضل أستاذنا مشكورا. تفضل أستاذ سعيد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. First of all, I would like to convey my salam and respect to Honorable Rector Professor Dr. Refik Polat, who couldn't make it today here because of his health problem. I would like to ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even quick recovery and blessing inshallah. And would like to thank our Dean of the Faculty of Islamic Science faculty and our respected participants who's coming from different cities, especially from Ankara, Şahban Hocam, and of course, beloved students. Thank you very much for coming and attending our very significant symposium. Really, today, alhamdulillah, since the beginning of the symposium, we have been hearing and listening very qualified, very significant scholars. They have been speaking, talking about very important issues. And the last remain to me, just I'm not going to focus on all the general issues of COVID-19 pandemic. As you may see, soon you will be seeing the title of the presentation. Mainly, I'm going to focus on the role of the state during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Inshallah, my presentation now will be on the screen. Soon it's coming. I know, I'm sorry because time is not very suitable time right now because you are so hungry. Rather than listening, you are willing to go to a restaurant. I believe that, but inshallah, I'll make it very short. As you know, respected participants, an overview of Islamic economics and finance during and post-COVID-19 pandemic, the role of the state. We have all experienced really serious pandemic and crisis COVID-19 since November 19, when the first cases occurred in Wuhan in China. As you may know that the whole world crashed totally. You may just move my beloved brother to the second slide. Okay. You may make it just the bigger size if then the parts may see all hopefully.
Nasıl büyütüyor?
Like that, inshallah. Second slide, yeah. Recently, just I looked at the figures. It was 25th of October 2021. The coronavirus cases reached to 2.4 million and some people affected from. And that 4 million, even 5 million people already died because of that, and recovered 221 million. The number is huge, never been expected to reach that level. Turkey, when the first cases seen in Turkey, if I'm not mistaken, it was 11 March 2020, the day, you may move my brother, the second slide, please. The day I remember I was picking up my luggage to come to my homeland, to beloved country, Turkey, from Malaysia. And due to the COVID-19, I stuck there for another 6 months and remained there because of that. And you may stay here, yeah, because the focal point is that I'm going to talk about much. As you may all aware, when you look at the Europe countries, United States, France, Italy, UK, all the countries, they totally crashed. They even couldn't handle the crisis professionally. People on the street, on everywhere. Hospitals, there is no place to hospitals. Due to the unprofessional leadership, maybe. Well, that's why controlling such crisis by good leadership is so important. Alhamdulillah, Turkey handled very professionally. All you may be aware that Islam came to protect 7 values, right? The first one is protection of the life, yeah, and the protection of the religion, you may see here, and protection of the intellect, protection of the wealth, protection of the lineage, guys, very significant, and protection of the honor, and the protection of the state. Although we know all the 6 values, eventually 5 values by Imam Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, after that, Imam Qarafi developed one more value, which is honor, protection of the honor of Muslim is so significant. If honor of Muslim is not protected, why Muslim people are living on earth? Who will protect the honor of Muslim people? If there is no good and strong, powerful leadership. And the 7th value, of course, there have been a lot of great scholars trying to develop the contexts, protection of the state, like Imam Shatibi rahimahullah ta'ala. But the final, alhamdulillah, me myself have been working on, and Dr. Hüsam here is presenting, his PhD thesis was on Siyasa Shar'iyya, the good leadership. And alhamdulillah reached to that point that 7 values of Maqasid al-Sharia is the protection of the state. Alhamdulillah. So why is important? Because when the 7th value is lost, automatically the rest values all be lost. Do you imagine? Do you think that when the leadership, good leadership is lost, is not there, and there is no good state, do you think your wealth will be protected? Your honor will be protected? Your life will be protected? I don't think so. We have a lot of examples around the world. Look at Iraq. Look at Palestine. Look at Syria. Unfortunately, if there is no good leadership, we don't have anything. We lose everything what we have. So we have, alhamdulillah, now Islamic banking and finance. So newly developing, almost 5 decades have been developing, and recently, alhamdulillah, Turkey, by the leadership of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, our honorable president, may Allah bless him, it's rapidly and very fast developing in Turkey, becoming inshallah center of Islamic banking and finance, what we call it as katılım finance, participation banking. Inshallah will be center since our brother Dr. Tarık Atam has already mentioned the finance office in the presidency of Turkey will be inshallah carrying out the significant responsibility. With that reason, during the COVID-19, when it started the first day, and until now, we all experienced the role of the state. Alhamdulillah, Turkey sent medical aids to all over the world, even the United States, all European countries, right? 158 countries been sent medical aid by Turkey, by the good governance system. And many organizations also took aid from Turkey during that time. Still, alhamdulillah. Remember the first days, people, we couldn't find the medicine. Not we actually, the Europe countries and Turkey, alhamdulillah, were sending to them to help them the first day. With that, how that happened? Of course, by the good governance. With that reason, my beloved participants, respected scholars, we have to give great emphasis on the role of state in establishing our own values. Inshallah, Islamic banking and finance will be center of in Turkey for whole humanity, not only Muslim people, for whole people. Because as you know that the West is dealing with the money, earning things through the money, which is prohibited in Islam. Money has no value at all because it's only medium of exchange, that's all.
Sayın hocam 10 dakikamız var.
Oh my God. We are still on the third slides. We have still 18 slides. No problem. I will inshallah summarize my talk. The economic impact in the world we have already known, right? And what has happened in the world here, from Germany to Japan, all the countries, and imagine during that days, the COVID-19 pandemic has added 19.5 trillion to global debt. How we can, right? Of course, our schools maintain it's not only health problem, has behind a lot of reasons. So what we need to do, the Muslim people must come together, collaborate together to solve the problem through a good leadership. What other things we may talk? Of course, in United States, I mentioned a lot people, 17 million people lost their jobs. And of course, what has happened? Whole world were closed, totally. Remember those days? You couldn't look at from the windows, right, to outside. Just start in our houses and rooms. The petrol, can you imagine? Barrel of petrol wasn't $0, was less than zero, minus $37, which means if you want to buy a barrel of petrol, I give you a barrel of petrol plus $37. Would you imagine how economy crashed? You can't understand. I mean, it's really total collapse. Has no value at all, the petrol, because of the pandemic. Of course, I mentioned that Turkey, alhamdulillah, had 158 countries and 11 international organizations in the world alhamdulillah, all waqfs, Kızılay, Afat, work day and night to help not only Turkish people, but all people in the world, not Muslim people, people in the world. So you see how great, alhamdulillah, by the leadership of Turkey, alhamdulillah. See, just for example, city hospitals are great establishments in Turkey. Although I'm sorry what kind of mentality the oppositions they have, they oppose these city hospitals still. So Turkey established this. We didn't have any problems about it. And in United States, just for medical, cure or help from the government, it costs almost 34,000 USD in the United States. In Turkey was free. And France, 25,000 euro. UK, would you imagine, UK, great country. It's 30,000 sterling costs if you want to get cured. But in Turkey, it was free. Why? How did it happen? By the good governance, by the good labor, alhamdulillah. So, of course, we don't have to mention all these significant things. Inshallah, you may see the slides and read by yourself. Because all is known, right? The economy, just we may look at this last paragraph. In 2021, Turkey's economy grew by 5.9% in the last quarter, after showing a 6.3% growth in the third quarter of the year. Would you imagine? Countries collapsed, bankrupted, but Turkey, alhamdulillah, is growing. Why? I believe that there are a lot of reasons because of helping other people. Not only Muslim people, other people. Syrian brothers, Egyptian brothers, Palestinian brothers. All because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses the country. So, what other can look at this? When we come to Islamic banking and finance, our president Recep Tayyip Erdoğan says, İslam iktisadı krizden çıkışın anahtarı. It is key. It is key, my beloved brothers and sisters. So, if you want to exit from the crisis or become strong economically in many aspects, of course, this is the key to enter into. So, inshallah, it's already started. There are how, of course, Islamic banking and finance, the participation banking started in Turkey. Of course, it's known, 1983, and developed, recently. And the growth of Islamic banking and finance is currently 7.2%. But inshallah, in a couple of years back, 2023 will reach reaching 15%, inshallah. And then will be increased more and more according to our work and academics and the field workers. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us to develop and increase, inshallah. Of course, in Turkey, when we look at in Turkey, has a lot of establishments. TKB'de, Türkiye Katılım Bankaları Birliği. Under that, a lot of organizations. We have Katılım Insurance, look at from insurance side. We have banking side, of course, as our Dean already mentioned, how participation banks and the branch of some banks like Vakıf Katılım, Ziraat Katılım, inshallah soon Halk Bank Katılım will be coming. They are dealing in Islamic banking and finance. Of course, as you know, we call it Katılım. There are a lot of organizations already. What other we can say? Okay, we may pass this. Please, what else? Of course, Turkey now, Turkey's Islamic Banking 2025 strategic vision. Already they put 6 visions. The first is communication, to create ecosystem. Of course, without creating ecosystem, it won't be successful, right? And then third is the variety important. We have to increase the number of the products in order to deal with the customers. And what else? Standards and management, digital economy and digital finance is so important right now. Everything almost getting into the digital side. So yetkinlik inşası, establishing or building proficiency in that field. So this is the strategic vision of Turkey. Inshallah will be methodized.
Hocam çok teşekkür ederiz. Düzenleme komitesinden hani biraz sarktığı için bitirmemiz gerektiğiyle ilgili bir mesaj aldım. İnşallah yazılı olarak yayınlanacak zannederim. Bu kalan kıymetli bilgileri takip edeceğiz. İnşallah basılı olarak elimize ulaşırsa.
I'm sorry due to the time constraint, I have to finalize my speech. Thank you very much for listening to me. I believe that you understand, although I've been speaking in English, but our heart is connected to your heart. So automatically you understand, right? We wanted to translate in Turkish. No need, right? So with that reason, thank you again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Sayın hocamıza tekrar teşekkür ediyoruz kıymetli bildirisi için. İnşallah bütün bu bildirilerin basımı bizlerin de bu kalan değerli bilgilere ulaşımımızı sağlayacaktır. Biraz sarktı. Dolayısıyla değerlendirme için ayrı bir vaktimiz kalmadı. Ben bütün katılımcılara teşekkür ediyorum. Bütün hocalarımıza, dinleyicilerimize, öğrencilerimize bu kıymetli vakitlerini böyle kıymetli bir kongreyi takip etmek için kullanmalarından dolayı. أساتذة الأفاضل نشكركم جزيل الشكر لمشاركتكم القيمة في هذا المؤتمر الذي نتمنى أن تكون نتائج إيجابية تعين العالم الإسلامي عموما والعالم أجمع للقضاء على الآثار السلبية الاقتصادية لجائحة كورونا وينير الطريق أمام العالم الإسلامي كما قلت وأكد عليه أساتذتنا أن الحلول الإسلامية ليست مقصورة على المسلمين لجميع العالم. نتمنى أن تكون هذه الحلول منتشرة ومقبولة مع رعاية مقاصد الشريعة وأن تكون بعيدا عن التحايل وأن تكون هناك حلول ومنتوجات إسلامية بمعنى الكلمة. وأكد الأساتذة لضرورة التعاون المشترك في سبيل محاربة آثار الكورونا بحسب المبادئ الإسلامية. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz tekrar katılımcılar için. Hocalarımızın hepsi hemen hemen aynı konular üzerinde özellikle durdular. İşte makasıdı esas alan bir çözümlerin üretilmesi, dikkate alınması makasıdın, hileli ve İslami olarak orijinal olmayan ürünlerden uzak kalınması, sadece Müslümanları değil tüm dünyayı hedef alan ürünlerin geliştirilmesi, bu ürünlerin aynı zamanda ticari olarak da rekabet edebilecek ürünler olması gibi hem gerçekçi hem de sürdürülebilir çözümler için hepimizin çalışması gerekiyor. Allah yardımcımız olsun. Katılımınız için tüm hocalarımız, tüm öğrencilerimize tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Allah'a emanet olun. Bundan sonraki oturumun saatini ilan etmemizi istiyorsanız onu Murat Hocam kaçta devam edecek? Oturum biraz gecikildi.
Arkadaşlar ilan edecek hocam.
Tamam.
Çok teşekkür ederiz, hürmet ederiz.
Estağfurullah, hürmetler bütün hocalarımıza bizden. Allah selamet versin. Eşkurkum cezile şükür esatidetine recilla. Nentadirukum inşallah fi Türkiye fi akrab vakt li netekellem an havle hadil mebahith vecihen li vecih.